Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on this edition of The Inside on Equinox Television. I am Barrister Jonathan. In this edition of the program, we're going to be focusing on the special status which is now under scrutiny at the lower house of Parliament, a bill on decentralization and the special status for the Northwest and Southwest regions has been tabled, and the parliamentarians are now discussing the content of the special status for the Northwest and the Southwest regions of the country. Meet our guest in some few seconds. We are receiving a senior legal mind, Senior Barrister ASHU Emmanuel, member of the Cameroon Bar Association and National President of the Reform Party. Barrister, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Lawmakers are now discussing the content of the special status and, of course, the other issues on the decentralization highlighted, contained in the bill that has been tabled in Parliament in an ongoing extraordinary session of the lower house of Cameroon's Parliament. What's your take on the special status aspect of that bill?
The special status is first of all mentioned in Article 3 of that bill, which is at loggerhead with the section, the fourth chapter that you just mentioned, beginning from Articles sections 327. Now, in Article 3, when you look at the wordings, it looks like a very good declaration of intention. So by reason of specificities having to do with linguistic and historic heritage, educational and legal background, well, Southern Cameroon, which is termed here as Northwest and Southwest regions, is entitled to benefit from a special status. So those are the wordings, entitled to benefit. So you see already from there that it looks like a gift that has been giving out some so it's a benefit from special status. Now,
should it be a gift?
That's the point. That's the point. Is it a right or is it a gift? Because they say, oh, it's a benefit. You benefit. It looks like it's something. I mean, it's a gift that is being dished out. Now, if you talk of
by who? By the head of state?
By the bill or by the law. You look at the second aspect that was taken, historic heritage. Historically, Southern Cameroon is an independent state that got independence, that tasted independence before the Republic of Cameroon. Southern Cameroon was already a semi-autonomous state in 1948 with Dr. Endele in charge of government business. They had a constitution. It has a constitution, 1948 Macpherson's constitution. In fact, this was the first African state to have a democratically elected government. Now, you come now, after how many years, you say that our state should benefit from special status. I mean, it looks like a historic heresy, because you affirm that this state has historical stamina, then you come again and deny everything, reduce the whole thing now to that section which is talking about the special status. You come and say that
the bill says that the Northwest and Southwest regions will benefit from a special status. Is it not a way of saying that the special status will be implemented in those two regions?
No, sir. I'm saying that when you go back historically, you have to be reminded that we are not talking here of a province or a region. It's a state with all the institutions of state and with international recognition.
It was a state.
It is a state, not was. It is a state.
But there are two regions now.
I am telling you that it is a state. That nonsense of region is what is causing the problem, the current problem, and that's the reason why the international community is bringing down pressure to bear on Cameroon, because Cameroon is denying historical, internationally recognized historical facts. I mean, there is, go to the United Nations. The independence of Southern Cameroon came from the United Nations. Resolution 1608 in Article 2 clearly recognizes the independence of Southern Cameroon. Clearly.
The independence that was achieved by joining.
That's right.
La République.
Correct.
Or the former La République.
By choosing to join La République du Cameroun, they obtained their independence, which was actually granted on the 1st of October 1961. So you cannot treat an independent country like a small region, a small part of a country to which you are giving as if it's a gift you are making to it. No.
But I want us to get this thing very clearly. In the federal system, there were two states.
Good. How do you
come
about the
abolished? And today we have the unitary system. Those two regions, or the Southern Cameroons, the former Southern Cameroon, is now known as the Northwest and the Southwest regions.
Thank you, Mr. Babila.
The Republic of Cameroon.
Thank you, Mr. Babila. After 1961, after the independence on 1st October, remember Article 5 of Resolution 1608 requested the administering authority, which is Great Britain, the government of Southern Cameroons, those are the weddings, and then the Republic of Cameroon, to sit together and come up with a union treaty that would define the way both parties have accepted to live together. That has never been done till today. In fact, when you start making mention of federal constitution, let me remind you that federal constitution was the unilateral act of President Emmanuel ASHU. The unilateral act, he signed it alone. And there is nowhere in the world any constitution is decreed by a president. In fact, Emmanuel ASHU had no powers, no legal authority to decree anything concerning Southern Cameroon that was not part of his territory. In fact, when Resolution 1608 was being voted, Cameroon was in the assembly and they voted against it. So there is no way they can pretend that that territory that was concerned by that resolution was part of them, because they participated in the vote of 1608 and they voted against. Now, you see that from the constitution, the federal constitution that was unilaterally decreed by ASHU, they moved on now to the unitary constitution and to where we are today. And they are perpetuating that assimilation that they started in 61 through the federal constitution. So when you talk of federal constitution, what is the legal basis? It stemmed from a unilateral act of President Emmanuel ASHU. It was not legal.
How was it a unilateral act?
In constitutional law, constitutions are the acts of an assembly. We are talking here of two states that decided, one state that decided to join to have or attain independence by joining the other one. Now, what they ought to do was to come up with a union treaty that was going to be ratified by the parliaments of both states. That is how it is done in international law. Even under the present constitution of Cameroon, it is there. Treaties and international agreements only obtain binding force when they are ratified, when they are duly ratified. But you cannot, like in the case of Southern Cameroons, people have voted to go and join their brothers. The United Nations say, okay, come out with the union treaty to define how you are going to live together. They don't do it. They just start. The president takes his pen, the president of the other state takes his pen and decrees that there is a federal constitution in place. I mean, under all the suns in this world, that is illegal. It is illegal. And that is the reason why the international community, the UN, the US, everybody is saying, sit on the table and discuss this thing out. Because what you did was wrong. You cannot erase an independent state. So that's why we are saying that the wordings of this thing, when they start in Article 3, they say, by reason of historic, by linguistic specificities and historic facts. Well, history, the historical heritage takes you back to an independent state whose whereabouts today we are questioning. Where have you kept the state? Let me remind you.
But the historical and linguistic background of the two entities, the Northwest and the Southwest regions of Cameroon, is it not referring to the fact that it was those two regions were governed by or were under the leadership of British or the British authorities, and so they inherited the British culture, they inherited the Anglo-Saxon culture, they inherited the language that they speak, the common law system, the educational system, and so on.
Now, when you talk of those two regions, who made them regions? It was a state, the state of Southern Cameroon. It was not regions. They were a trusted, a UN trust territory entrusted to Britain. It wasn't a colony, entrusted to Britain. And when the UN was passing regions, they said in Article 4, the trust mandate that was given to Britain will come to an end in the following manner. In the following manner, and that's how the Article 5 was prescribed for the Union Treaty. So if you look at it carefully, Article 5 not having been satisfied, Southern Cameroon is still somehow a UN trust territory. Because if you see that, you look at it carefully, they say the trust, the mandate that was given to Britain in 1946 will come to an end in the following manner, and that manner has not been satisfied till today. So it is the government of the Republic
of a Union Treaty,
because of the absence of a Union Treaty, that ought to finalize the unification process. And I keep saying it, that's the reason why today in Cameroon, even Republic of Cameroon cannot celebrate its independence, because there are two independent days. There are 2 days for independence: 1st January 1960, 1st October 1961. They cannot celebrate one and leave the other. There is no unification date. They go take plebiscite date. That is not unification date. There is no unification date because there had been no reunification proper.
So it is abnormal.
It's abnormal
to say that the Northwest and the Southwest
will benefit
from a special.
Will benefit. It's abnormal.
All right, let's continue.
Because we are talking here as equal partners. I mean, there are 2 states that decide to come together. You cannot say, you who have the same authority as me, you are giving me some benefit. For what? It's a right, it's not a benefit.
The 2 states have, however, become 2 regions, or they
have been divided and ruled. They have been broken into 2 regions.
They've been broken into 2 regions. All right, let's talk about the content of this special status. It says in section 329 or Article 329 that the elected organs that will be put in place in the Northwest and Southwest regions will freely manage the affairs of Anglophone Cameroon.
That's
what
correct.
Do you think about that?
That's correct. When you look at that one, you think that it is a mandate, general mandate that has been given. But go down to the article just at the beginning of the bill. That particular provision is given to the other regions. So it is not a peculiarity of Southern Cameroon. Now, where the thorn is
in the fact that the organs that will be in the Northwest and Southwest regions, some of them will not be found in the other regions.
The only things that you will not find in the other regions is what they call special status. And what is the special status? That's why I tell you that move from 329, go now to 331. Article 331, you will see there that they tell you in sub 2 the contents of the management of the assembly. They say the assembly, the powers of the assembly are the same powers as the regional councils. The assembly will have the same powers as the regional councils. So in other words, what they are calling assembly is simply a decoration of the regional assembly that has been put in place. They have the same powers as the regional assembly. Then, in addition to those powers, they are going to have 3 other powers. 1, to be may be consulted, not even must, or they say may be consulted. It's not compulsory. They may be consulted on issues pertaining to national policy on the Anglophone subsystem of education. Now, they start by saying in Article 3 that these 2 regions have peculiarities having to do with education. Now, when it comes to the implementation of the educational system now, it becomes a national policy on which they may be consulted. I want you to see that the bill is taking away the management of Anglophone education from the Anglophone assembly that they are creating. And they are sending it to some place in Yaoundé where from Yaoundé they may decide to consult this consultative consultative regional council that is being styled as an assembly.
That the organs may give opinions on issues relating to
regional development,
the shaping of public policies of justice in the common law system, and of course take part in the elaboration of public policies and issues concerning education and so on. Does that mean that they will not have a free hand? Let me just to determine how the educational system will look like, how the legal system will function, and so.
Yes, you see, it baffles me to see how one people will want to be dominating the other. If it were possible under the sun for the French and the English systems to be united, France and England, that are neighbors, would not have been living today as different countries. They are neighbors, but they have remained like that for centuries. The idea of a union has never crossed each person's mind. How do they think that when they come to Cameroon, that is going to be miraculously obtained? The common law system does not need a public policy. It's a complete system. Allow it function as it is. You see, look, these are avenues of intervention that are being opened to dilute the common law system. I'll take a simple example. The training of magistrates. In the common law system, magistrates, we have a bar, common law bar, inside which you have magistrates, lawyers, every person in the judiciary. The magistrates are chosen from among seasoned lawyers. In fact, the magistrates are senior lawyers who have been chosen to go sit by reason of their experience. But in the French system, they take small children, go and train in schools as magistrates. And those are the people who are now posted. They have a school to train magistrates. You see the difference? And that is what they are imposing on common law here. Now, they have their Supreme Court, which is there in Yaoundé. By their own system, their Supreme Court is the last appellate jurisdiction. In the English system, look at the Supreme Court civil procedural rules. There are rules that apply not to that Supreme Court, but from the High Court. The Supreme Court in the Anglophone, in the English procedure, starts from the High Court. In fact, the administrative, the High Court exercises is at the same time the Electoral Court, the Administrative Court. I mean, the court that is competent to try matters generally. But their own system has it that Supreme Court is only that last jurisdiction up there. And that is what they are taking to impose on the Anglophones. So you see, they come now in the last part of Article 3 to say special provisions will be made to define the running. No, sir. It is not their cup of tea. You want the English legal system to function. It has been done already. That has been provided for already in the 1955 High Court law. You understand? It has been provided for already in the 1955 High Court law, which according to Article 28 of this present constitution is still applicable. So why do you need any special provision again that will come and tell us how the courts are supposed to run? We don't need that. It is superfluous. So I am saying that what they are presenting as a special status is simply an empty basket.
Barrister, let's take a look at what the newspapers reported this week, and when we come back, we'll take a look at the legality, the legal strength of the organs that have been written down in the bill, and of course we will be going further into greater details to talk about the assembly and of course the executive body that will be put in place in the Anglophone Cameroon. Stay with us.
The reporter announces the coming of a special status in the Northwest and Southwest regions. The Post-Weekender says Anglophones are anxiously waiting as President Paul Biya tables the special status package in Parliament. According to the Median, President Paul Biya is taking a fast track to the special status by revealing its content as reported by the Horizon. And the Herald Tribune exclaims over what it qualifies as a juicy special status package. According to the Heathen, the package is key for a return to normalcy in the Northwest and Southwest regions. As lawmakers examines decentralization and special status bill, the Guardian Post questions if the extraordinary parliamentary session is a make or mar with regards to the Anglophone crisis. Newswatch reports how the presidency was misled in the controversial bill on the promotion of bilingualism in courts across the country. The Voice attributes the worsening Anglophone crisis to what it calls government's stubbornness. The Advocate reports that the United Nations is intervening as food insecurity hits the Southwest and Northwest regions. The Herald clashes feared between Yaoundé traders over relocation of roadside vendors. And finally, the Median says the Boya Council is in need of funds for the burial of late Mayor Kema Patrick Esunge.
Thanks for staying with us. Barrister, the bill says that a regional assembly will be put in place, and that regional assembly will be made up of the House of Divisional Representatives and the House of Chiefs. What is the legal backing of this assembly that would be put in place?
Okay, I think that by that noble intention, the bill intends to take us back to restore the West Cameroon House of Assembly, which had those two houses, which had the House of Assembly and the House of Chiefs. But they don't want to call it House of Assembly. They say House of Divisional Representatives. Yeah. In fact, I don't understand where this type of thing comes from. House of Divisional Representatives. It was House of Assembly. If you want to restore the House of Assembly, go ahead and restore it. But now, where the problem comes is that they are creating a legislature which is a totally empty basket. Look at what has to be done inside this legislature. First of all, the House of Assembly, the Divisional Representatives, is going to be presided over by who? By the Chief Executive. The Chief Executive. So it is the Regional Executive who will be the president of the lower house, which they call Divisional House of Representatives. His assistant will be president of the House of Chiefs. I mean, it is a legal incongruity. If you create a legislature, that legislature should be able to take care of itself. It's an organ. You cannot have one organ being controlled by another one, except what you want to create is a dictatorship, because it is in a dictatorship that the executive swallows the other organs.
You told me in one of the editions of The Insight that in Cameroon, instead of 3 arms of the state,
we have two that are working.
We have 2, and Barrister Aliscom went further to say that there is only one, because the legislative arm and the judicial arm have been swallowed by the executive arm. Is it this kind of structure that wants to be put in place?
No, I will differ with my senior barrister Adison in that in Cameroon we have a bicameral judiciary. You have the Senate, which has a president. You have the parliament that has a president. You have senators, you have parliamentarians, so you cannot say the executive has swallowed up the legislative arm.
No, she backs up this argument in the sense by saying that the fact that the ruling party, the CPDM, has an overwhelming majority.
That is, it's a
in
functional
the two houses.
No,
They have now been put under the yoke of the executive arm of the government, which is led by the CPDM.
I want to remind you that the few times when we saw some CPDM members go renegade in the house, there was total panic. Remember the case of Adama Mudi, the northern parliamentarian who got up and challenged Kavai. You saw the upward. You had the other problem of Wilbur, who stood up, and I mean, you see, they think that
Senator Kemende,
they think that when they since CPDM has a majority, they will always sheepishly sit in the house and follow what they think will please their leader.
As a result of party discipline. Now, I was bringing this up to help us to understand how these two institutions will function: the executive arm and, of course, the judicial arm, that is the assembly, and the executive body that will be put in place in Anglophone Cameroon, one led by the other.
It cannot go. If they want, I mean, it just cannot go. If they think that any person can be fooled with that, it cannot go. First of all, the chiefs are the most respectable people in our society. I want to remind viewers that Anglophone Anglophones were used to the system of indirect rule by the British. The British washed off their hands and allowed the local population to govern itself, and that happened through the chiefs. So our chiefs have enormous powers. They are the custodians of traditions, the custodians of all the security things in the society. Now, you go and make a house of chiefs, and then you want the executive. Man who is only the executive to come and control the chiefs. What is that? I mean, you are going to cause confusion. No chief will bow down to that. The chiefs have to have their own person presiding, leading their house. Then, the lower house has to elect. I mean, you cannot imagine Prime Minister of Cameroon being Speaker of the House. What is that? That is what they are trying to do. To say the Prime Minister will be Speaker of the House is nonsense.
Something that is going to produce what happened recently in the Southwest region, where the governor was asking chiefs to come out on 20th May and carry
you can see that,
and the subjects follow them to march, giving instruction, this kind of instructions.
Thank you. You see, and the chiefs told Mr. Governor, with all your governorship, we are not going to follow you, sir. You see, so that is the type of situation they are trying to create. You see, these people should follow my advice. If you want to create an assembly, create one. Don't take a regional council and transform it into a municipal council and transform it into an assembly. Because what they are doing there is simply giving Southern Cameroons a municipal assembly with consultative powers.
Consultation.
A municipal assembly with consultative powers, that's all. So that may be consulted. That's all. The only thing that assembly may have the right to do, there are only two things: discuss the status of chiefs, discuss local developmental projects. That's all. They have powers to do nothing else. Then the other new thing that they are bringing now for the special status, the second ambit of the special status, is the special independent conciliator, whose job will be to be receiving complaints concerning the running of the regional services. Of what importance that one is, it's my guess. I mean, what is that? In the whole country, is only the Anglophone region that have a special independent. I thought it was maybe something like the special council in America, but well, and the man is going to be appointed by the President of the Republic. So, what is special about the status? The partial revamping of the House of Chiefs and the assembly that they want to give, to which they want to give powers, or a special independent conciliator who looks like a court and an administrator and is an independent person appointed from your own day. No.
Barrister, to the best of my knowledge, assemblies, or let's say the National Assembly, produces laws. It's a house, it's a law-making house.
Thank you.
What about the assembly that will be put in place in Anglophone Cameroon, the regional assembly? Will it enact or produce laws?
Thank you. That's why I sent you back to Article 331, sub 2. That says that that assembly will have the same powers as the regional councils in the other regions of the country. That is to say, they deliberate. They deliberate. They don't enact any law. You've seen it, that going through the whole thing, there is no place there where they say they can enact any law. They are going to be deliberating. And that's why I said, what we are actually seeing is they're putting in place of a municipal council that is endowed with consultative powers. That's all. Because regional council is the upgrade of the municipal council.
So what is going to be the legal strength of
nothing?
What will come out of those?
Nothing. Is deliberation. It is just like a council is holding his meeting. They go and sit there. Mr. Mayor gives the floor to his councillors, who talk and give their opinion on the issues that are on the table. Nothing else. Nothing more than that. Deliberations. That's all. There is no law. They're not going to be able to pass a single law if that bill is going to remain like that. So we are calling on these parliamentarians who want to put their names in the history books. If they want to revamp the West Cameroon House of Assembly, let them do it properly and stop shaming Cameroon in the eyes of the world.
Barrister, government delegates will be replaced by what is termed as super mayors, elected super mayors, so to speak. Is that a good aspect of that law?
Well, looking at it carefully, one would think that the way the provisions that concern the election of that super mayor were drafted, it is possible for somebody who is not even a councillor or a mayor to become super mayor. But if you look at Article 6, sub 2, you will see that it states that those super mayors derive their authority from an elective mandate. So there must be people who have been elected. In that regard, like in a big city like Douala, that has 6 councils, I think it's a nice thing if all the 6 elected mayors come together and from their midst, they select somebody by reason of his competence, integrity, all that, to speak for everybody. Because, you see, there are instances where the city of Douala should be seen to talk as one person. If it is well organized, it is a good thing, because from the common pool, development can be impacted to the other councils. But if it's going to happen like we had it happen under the government delegates, who were so full of themselves by reason of their appointment by the head of state, and they saw in themselves semi-heads of states, then that will not be possible. But I think that seeing it as a coming together, a pulling together of all the forces of the councils to act as one, of the urban councils to act as one person, it is something nice.
But Barrister, some critics think that nothing is going to change as far as this is concerned. They think that in an area like Douala, for example, where we have 6 councils, if 5 or 4 of the councils are controlled by the CPDM, and knowing that they are compelled to respect party discipline, the election of the super mayor could be influenced by Yaoundé, could be influenced by the hierarchy of the CPDM, and the choice will not be the choice, will not necessarily be the choice of the people, but the choice of the party.
I beg to differ, sir, because in the election of the super mayor, he is going to be elected by all the municipal councillors. You see, the people, the college of electors is all the municipal councillors within that region. So within that town. So it is not possible to impact party discipline in that regard. If one party can control all the municipal councillors, therefore the party is really popular.
Barrister, what is going to happen to the governors the SDUs, the divisional officers in Anglophone Cameroon with regards to what is said in this bill?
Now, the governors and what they commonly call the prefectoral, the Jacobin administrative system has a provision. There's a provision at the tail end of the bill which says that all the first services of the governors, the divisional officers, and the subdivisional, the DOs, will be shifted over to the councils. There is that provision, but
the regional council,
they have created a.
Will be shifted to the regional council and the local councils.
Yes, they have created a state representative. There's a state representative who will be appointed from Yaoundé, and in my opinion, it looks like it's another governor, a governor in a different shape. So, but he will have no services. You see.
So, what will be the essence of having him in the administration of the two regions?
Well, his role there is to represent the state. You know, the councils and the regions are decentralized services of the states, and we still have ministries. These are decentralized services. You see, you still have the government structure which is in place. The ministers and their ministries and their regional delegations and subdivisional, all those things, they are all in place.
And another question now is on the relationship between the regional authorities, the president of the regional council, his vice, and all those who are under him, the president of the assembly, the House of Chiefs, the House of Divisional Representatives, and all those regional authorities. What's going to be their relationship with the ministers in Yaoundé?
Well, the person representing the region at that level
is they still lot over the
person representing the region at that level is the regional executive. So he is the one who has to interact with Yaoundé, not the House of Chiefs. House of Chiefs and the House of Divisional Representatives can be consulted in matters where their consultation is open. They don't have anything to do. They can be consulted, like in matters of education concerning the Anglophone subsystem, or judiciary, or
and their opinions may be considered.
Maybe they may be consulted.
All right, Barrister, we're going to take some interviews right now. We'll be back in some few minutes.
Gross human rights violations have definitely been carried through by various actors, and most especially, the government officials making special reference here to the military, and to a lesser extent, the non-state arms who actually erroneously, mistakenly doing the wrong things, what definitely is not what they supposedly intend to do. Because the level at which we are living the reign of impunity in our communities is actually alarming, and it is calling for attention. And I suppose that even the international community, in trying to impact its own actions on ground, has definitely not got that much as they would have loved to. Because there is that complicity, I want to put it, that the government is giving its own narrative, and that seems to be swaying the people away. This is condemnable, and it's unpardonable that no matter what the circumstance, no matter who is involved in what act, that you're taking away a life. You can't even contribute in making life worth it. And so we don't have any right to take up the life of some other person, no matter what cause is it you're standing for. Pascal Ngwai was a devoted and committed humanitarian actor on field, trying to collect data, not to meet up with our findings on field, so we can actually show the picture as it's supposed to be shown, rather than what is being given from the government. But unfortunately, he lost his life. And that is why I'm using this platform to begin an action which will enable us to go to get effective reporting on ground with the violations that we come across. We are working towards putting in place a platform that will enable us, to be able to act like one voice on all categories of violations, from arbitrary arrest, from illegal detention, extrajudicial killings, and you can name them in that order. The raising of homes and disappearances, and all of those things, we definitely will not see them wink or blink. We are definitely going to begin to find out all of these details and submitting reports at every periodical moment when they do happen, so that the world should come alive with respect to the violations that are actually happening in Cameroon.
It was Cardinal Angelo Roncalli, who was then the nuncio in Paris, in France, who drafted the what we have today as the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So when you talk human rights, it's very close to the church. Why? Because for the church, each and every one of us is created in the image and likeness of God, equal. And because that is the basis of our equality, the basis of our dignity, the basis of our human rights. There are two types of rights. They are what you call inalienable rights, rights which I don't need you to give me, they are mine. And you have no right to intervene on them. My right to life, for example, my right to live a decent life, my right to think freely, and my right to be who I am and to belong to a country. That's an inalienable right. You can't deprive me of such rights. Then there are rights which are achieved, and which are achieved constitutionally or by where I belong, etc., which are given by what you do and by some other person. Now, often we misinterpret and we transgress even on both inalienable and on given rights. You have no right. Nobody has a right to take away the inalienable right of another one. You cannot decide that I will not breathe air. You cannot decide that I will not be alive. You cannot decide that I will not have water. These are not for you, anybody, whoever the person is, to decide. And so on a day of human rights like this, we look at our own country, we look at our region, and we see within the context of the present armed conflict, the abuse of human rights has been colossal. Honestly speaking, nothing like this has ever happened before. And we should be ashamed that we are moving around talking and we have finished killed people, we've tortured people, and some are still being tortured and killed. We should be ashamed of ourselves. You realize that you are as human as I am. And there's no person who is more human than other people, no person whose own personality is better than another, who is more of a person than other people.
As this month is about doing and not just talking, I want to briefly list a few helpful steps that could be taken to restore a measure of stability. We urge UNOCA and our partners to take a more assertive role in resolving Cameroon's conflict and to continue to urge both the government of Cameroon and separatist group to enter into open-ended dialogue without preconditions, relinquishing their focus on a military solution.
The permanent representative also adds U.S. supports the Swiss-led mediation process between governments and
I'm working in Donga Mantle, and my parish is Chuk Parish. The crisis driven every Christian, and we are right now in the bush, and most of them have come down to Douala. We will keep on trusting in God and knowing fully that all is well.
We cannot hold these elections without taking some measures. So the forces have been then involved to this process to know how they can accompany this process, how they can survey, and then how they can bring peace amongst the populations. We cannot have an electoral process without taking those measures. That's why this program is to make a kind of training of these forces to be able to tackle all the difficulties we can have.
The country is going to hold an important electoral process in 2020. So we have already trained the trainers of the electoral process for the security forces and defense to accompany all the actors, notably the security forces, to support all the process, all the electoral process which is coming, and to be able to create an enabling environment for peaceful elections in our country.
We are in the fourth industrial revolution. We are in the AI age, artificial intelligence. And we cannot be doing the same things over and over and getting the same results. We must stop what I call cultural entropy. Doing things that doesn't make any impact on the community. Our universities are running courses that have no impact in this generation. So CUIB is the leading group that wants to be the pace setter in training our Cameroonians so that they can cope with the 4.0 generation. This is what is critical now. And I think I could see that many Cameroonians are still ignorant of what is going on in the world. They are still in the second and first century already revolution. And we are already on the 4.0 revolution. So my appeal is that let the people of Douala realize that CUIB has come to their doorsteps, and let them make the best of CUIB so that we can change the educational model of Cameroon to be a growth mindset educational model.
The university, as we are celebrating now, is a setup, is a system where people are built up continuously. We build up the skills of those who are admitted, their capacities, so that they are able to realize what God made them to be. So the university therefore gives enough time and attention to make sure that the students, when they come out, we say we are not seeking, looking for work. We are work makers ourselves. We are creators. We all have the talent, and if they are not channeled as they do at the university, they lie fallow, and we are sometimes very confused and think we are incapable.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. We are still with our guest, Senior Barrister ASHU Emmanuel, member of the Cameroon Bar Association and National President of Reform Party. Mr. President, when you look at all what we've discussed from Article 327 right down to the last subsection that talks about the special status, globally speaking, if it were to be implemented, is it going to change anything on the ground as far as the situation is concerned, the Anglophone crisis and so on? Some are already forecasting another degree of outburst of anger over this special status.
Well, if that special status is being presented as a means of ending the Anglophone crisis, then I'm very sorry that it's a stone thrown into the ocean. It can go to nowhere. You may well consider it death on arrival, because you are putting in place an assembly which is only assembly by the word assembly. It cannot legislate, it cannot do anything, it has no powers. It may be consulted on some few issues. It has the same powers as the regional councils in the other regions of the country. And you are bringing some conciliator as yourself. So how is that going to cause people who are in the bushes with Kalashnikov and AK-47 to drop their weapons? Because you have asked, you have called chiefs to go and sit somewhere they may be consulted? No. You see, if the government wants that the crisis be put, the civil war be brought to an end, it has to do more than what we are saying in that special status. Let them grant real autonomy. I mean, give Southern Cameroons its statehood. Because the cry there is for the restoration of the state. If you take it too far away from that restoration, it will not interest anybody. That's the thing. I mean,
restoration of the statehood.
The statehood has to be restored. That's the problem. You see, what we are seeing
is that synonymous to secession?
No.
Or the restoration of the independence of the former Southern Cameroon?
The federal state, the federal system, reduced Southern Cameroon into a state, into a federated state. And if you are proposing even that one, some people can listen to it. But you are reducing...
because what you're saying now will be considered by the administration as secession.
No, sir. No, sir. There is nothing like secession. I'm saying that they should at least restore the statehood of Southern Cameroons. They have recognized that they are historic.
A return to the federal system. Is that what you said?
The federal system is not. Normally, we are supposed to. You see, normally we are supposed to be in a confederation. Normally, if you want to look at it in strict legal terms, we are supposed to have a confederation, not a federation. But between the people who are asking for total independence and those who are asking for unitary state, for this unitary state which has led us to trouble to continue, there is the middle line of the federated state. So if they were even proposing a federated state, because remember that the UN and the US are minded to restore federation. So should we go through UN intervention, who they send arms here and peacekeepers to come and end up in a federation, which might even lead to total independence, like in the cases of Eritrea and South Sudan? Because when the UN comes in, you don't master their plan of action until they leave. They go when they want to go. You cannot tell them anything. The problem is to stop them from coming. These parliamentarians are behaving as if we have many more appealing options. We don't. They should put on the table something that is acceptable, not only to Cameroonians, but also to the international community. Because failing that, we are going to, you see, the Secretary General of the UN already asked that a humanitarian corridor be put in place. And that is bad enough, because that corridor is going to be policed by the UN. They are going to police it. And they are going to be the ones to know what they are shipping through their corridor. Whether it is armored cars, whether it is trucks filled with humanitarian aid, medical supplies and all that, you have no control over it. My take is that they should do something meaningful, not the type of primary school cosmetics.
There's a very controversial bill that was tabled in Parliament on language, the promotion of bilingualism in courts across the country. And that bill sent lawyers on strike, common law lawyers on strike in Bamenda. At the end of the day, the bill was adopted by Parliament, and that bill is being seen by common law lawyers as another threat to the common law system. What do you think about this?
I have not seen the final version of the bill, but the original version of it had 3 sections that were very, very offensive. There was a section where they said the presiding magistrate could write his judgment in any of the languages. I mean, it made no legal sense, because every court has its language. A court sits in the language of the people, the lingua franca. The court has its traditions. You cannot take the tradition of a different court, come and put in another one. A common law court can never write a judgment in French. It's not possible. If a civil law court cannot pass a judgment in English. You see, there are certain situations that we meet in certain areas. Like when you go to the special criminal court. That's the only court in this country I've seen that they say, okay, because you are an Anglophone, they will give you a jury that is presided by an Anglophone who will try you according to the common law system. Well, that is private internet. That is the application of the rules of private international law. That's the first time I've seen it in this place. It's very correct. Although they are sitting in their own debate, they give you somebody who will try you according to the common law system. And the judgment will be in English. That is good.
That's what should be done.
Application of private international law.
You see, Cameroon.
But what that bill was trying to do was to say any magistrate sitting can decide to pass a judgment in English or in French, irrespective of who is in front of him. No, it's wrong. That was where we said, in that case, they intend to flood the area again with francophone magistrates who don't even know the system and who can't be talking French to people whom they are trying in English. And it sparked off trouble. There were about 3 or 4 other things there.
That law should be dismissed by the upper house of parliament. Should it be dismissed?
Well, I haven't seen the final
copy.
I haven't seen that
of the law.
Because when they do their things, they always hide them. So we don't know. The law comes. It looks like legislation by ambush. You only discover in the press.
All right, Barrister, before we round up this edition of The Inside, the American Congress has written a letter to President Paul Biya saying that if there is no peace, there should be no elections.
Well, that is diplomatic. A friend writing to another. America has interest in Cameroon, business interests, strategic interests. It is a matter. I'm not a head of state.
Should there be elections or not?
One head of state writes to the other to advise him.
Should there be elections?
In the present context, there should be no elections. It's total tomfoolery. There can be no meaningful elections in this country. You see, if people want to live well, they should do what is correct. You cannot be having a civil war raging in the country. You go and take people who are hiding in Yaoundé and ask them to make documents in Yaoundé to say that they are representing the areas where there is a civil war. What is that? It's total nonsense. And as I'm saying, when America writes that way, on the 16th of this month, the Security Council will be meeting. And that Security Council is presided over by America. What do you think they will put on the table?
They're already meeting, and the U.S. representative, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations Security Council, described the situation as a very disturbing one. She painted a bleak picture of Anglophone Cameroon, despite the fact that some people have been saying that things are improving over there. And she called for dialogue, negotiation
without preconditions
with the separatists, with those who are fighting for the restoration of the independence of southern Cameroons, and of course urgent action by the African Union and CEMAC regional heads of states. Barrister, we're going to end this edition of the program here. Thanks so much for your decision to join us in this edition of The Inside.
You're welcome.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today.